Welcome to another installment of r/Maliciouscompliance, where today OP managed to make over $10,000 in 1 week simply by complying to company rules. Before we get started, if you enjoy these Reddit stories, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you're new here, welcome. I make videos compiling Reddit stories from all sorts of different subreddits. As always, let me know which story you enjoyed the most, and feel free to suggest a subreddit you think I should visit. Now let's move on to the first story of the day, which was posted by Emma Har. I can only book over the phone? Okay. Super short one. A few years ago, I went to the doctor's to make an appointment. I had to go to the pharmacy next to it, so I thought I'd pop in instead of calling. Receptionist tells me they can't take walk-ins. I didn't want an appointment then anyway, and can only take bookings over the phone. So I stood at reception, got my phone out, and called the number for the phone right next to her. I made eye contact with her the whole time as she answered the phone and booked me in. Oh man, reading this story reminds me that common sense really isn't that common. Just imagine if she was so dense that she thought it was somebody else on the phone and not OP. Our next story was posted by Argish. If you need to pee more than twice a day, you need a doctor's note. Cleaning out my home office today and stumbled across paperwork I had saved for whatever reason from a crappy call center job I worked at 15 years ago. This was an outbound sales thing and it was non-stop calls all day. Needless to say, the job sucked. With the constant talking though, your voice would start cracking throughout the day if you didn't hydrate. So I would bring jugs of water to sip on all day long. This of course meant frequent trips to the restroom. I never abused these trips as they were always 3 minutes or less. But of course, this wasn't good enough for management. Oh no. One day, my manager demanded I get a doctor's note if I wanted to pee at any time other than one of my 2 regularly scheduled breaks. I could tell she was convinced I would not do it. So I scheduled the appointment and filled the doctor in, who thought it was hilarious that this manager either 1. Didn't understand biology, or 2. Was on a huge power trip. He provided me with the most condescending doctor's note ever. This is the picture of the doctor's note. Needless to say, she was not happy. My coworkers though all made trips to the same doctor and got similar notes. Pretty sure I wore a crappy grin every time I walked into that bathroom after that. This is the type of manager that makes anyone want to quit their job. I wonder how much money that doctor made by writing all these ridiculous notes, all for the same company just to satisfy one manager. Our next story was posted by Kimchi Katie. You've been randomly selected. This happened about 3 years ago while going through an airport in the US. I walked through a metal detector, something must have beeped and they needed to pat me down. After a thorough pat down, I put on my shoes and started to walk over to grab my bag. A TSA agent stops me and says, "You've been randomly selected, please step into the body scanner." I was polite but said that I didn't really want to get into the body scanner and asked if there was another way. The agent said that I could get a pat down. I said, well, I just got a pat down, so... They angrily told me to pick an option. So I took 2 steps backwards to the woman who had patted me down 30 seconds ago and spread 'em again. While she was patting me down, I asked if she found anything new. She stared daggers at me but let me go. OP, you should consider yourself lucky you didn't end up with a prideful TSA agent. If you did, you probably would have missed your flight. Our next story was posted by a user whose name I can't even begin to pronounce, but I will try anyways. Anstaker Vulistoff. You're not to get involved in your mom's Facebook stuff. My dad's words years ago when I started a discussion with my mom over some dumb, racist stuff she said on Facebook. Facebook brings out the worst in my mother, who in real life used to be a lovely woman, but over the years got lost in her echo chamber of stupidity. I tried getting her out, but I'm not to get involved in my mom's Facebook stuff. Today, there was an illegal protest in my city. a protest organized on Facebook by the lowest of the low of our society. We have a group of about 100 delusionals in the country who are actually willing to get from behind their keyboards and disrupt public transit in my city any opportunity they can get in the name of the people. My parents, not part of the 100 but seems to be well on their way, went to today's protest. The protest was illegal. They were told to separate and leave. They didn't and they got arrested. They didn't have any form of identification on them, so they were not allowed to leave. My dad called me for the first time this afternoon after asking me to go to their place, pick up the IDs, and then the police station. I asked if this was about the Facebook event. He said yes, and I said I better not get involved then. Hung up and ignored his next 17 calls. My aunt apparently went to pick them up later that night, and everyone is pissed at me, saying I'm a traitor except for my grandma, who called to say she misses me, and I haven't been able to get that grin off my face. Honestly, OP, you did the right thing. Your dad told you explicitly not to get involved, and you did just that. And the next time you see your grandma, make sure you give her a huge hug. Our last story was posted by Altrisa. The most expensive phone calls on the planet. Many years ago, more than 15, I worked as a programmer for an oil and gas automation company. This means we would design and build the computer systems for oil and gas plants, commission them, and support the operators during the day-to-day operations. Because of this, my company ran a 24/7 support phone. Every week, a member of my team would get the phone and be expected to be available to answer calls 24/7. We had enough people on the team that it would roughly equate to getting the phone twice a year. Most of the employees of the company were salaried, and the 24-hour phone was written into their contract. For every phone call they took, they could charge a minimum of 1 hour in bank time. This was a good deal for them and made the 24/7 phone easier to handle. I was a little different than my coworkers in that I wasn't a salaried employee. I was an hourly contractor. My coworkers would bank their time, but I was just paid out bi-weekly. My contract also stated that if I was being paid by the company, I had to be available exclusively to the company. This was added by their HR department because a few years before, they caught an hourly contractor running side jobs for other businesses at his desk. This also meant if they wanted me to be available exclusively to the company, they had to pay for my time. For 2 years, I knew the 24/7 phone existed but never had to take it because according to my contract, if they wanted me to be available, they had to pay my hourly rate after normal work hours to ensure that I was available to answer the phone when it rang. Then, as in most corporate stories, my completely awesome manager left for greener pastures and was replaced with an absolute tool. After a month of being in office, he decided it wasn't fair that everyone took turns on the phone except for me. He declared that I would be put in the rotation effective immediately. I didn't want to cost the company a ton of money, so I tried to explain that if I'm on a 24/7 phone, that means they have to pay me 24 hours a day for 7 days. He scoffed and told me I obviously didn't understand how business worked. I told him he didn't understand how my contract was laid out, and that I'm an hourly contractor, not a salaried employee. He insisted that to be a team player, I had better take the phone or look elsewhere for employment. I didn't want to seem like I wasn't a team player, so I accepted the phone and started my clock. 7 days later, I handed the phone off to the next guy and submitted my bi-weekly invoice. It came out to just over $10,000, with $8,400 being just that 1 week of having the phone. I waited about 15 minutes before I was pulled into the manager's office. When I arrived, the manager, the head of HR, and the manager's boss, the head of the department, were there with my most recent invoice sitting on the desk. The department head just looked at me and asked what the heck I was thinking when I gave them that invoice. I explained that the new manager insisted I take the 24/7 phone even though my contract clearly stipulates that if the company wants me to be available 24/7, they have to pay for every minute I have the phone. The new manager became redder with every word. When I was finished, the department manager turned to him and asked why he didn't know this. since it's common knowledge that no contractors are ever put in that kind of position. As he was stuttering for an answer, the department head dismissed me and told me to expect my check at the usual time. The best part? During the entire week I had the 24/7 phone, it only rang twice. Both during work hours and both calls asking for a specific person in the department. All I had to do was give them a phone number. Those two 3-minute phone calls cost that company $4,200 each. After that, the new manager pretended I didn't exist and refused to talk to me for 3 months until he moved to sales in a different department. I was at the company for another 2 years and never saw that phone again. That poor manager. He probably came in with the best intentions to improve the department and boost morale, but instead he was too blinded by that goal even after OP tried to explain the situation. Honestly, if I was that manager, I would pretend OP didn't exist either because I wouldn't be able to look him in the eye. After reading this story, I think I should draft up a contract and start looking for my own contract job. That concludes this episode of r/Maliciouscompliance. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe, as this all really helps my channel grow and pushes me to create more videos. Also, I'll be posting videos every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, so turn on notifications to be notified for my next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.